Hello, captivating ladies. This is Leah Meyer. I hope this message finds you feeling encouraged and refreshed in your journey of discovering who God has designed you to be. The road to transformation can be bumpy and even downright painful, but the fruits waiting for you on the other side are beautiful and worth fighting for. And I pray that you continue to fight the good fight. Eve was created as a reflection of God's beauty and captivating nature. She was meant to be a life-giving, life-saving warrior, relational to her core and overflowing with tenderness and mercy. This is also how we were created to be as image bearers, but I'm guessing that most of us don't feel that way on a day-to-day basis. We know that when Eve was deceived in the garden, her downfall came from just a momentary doubt, a split-second fear she couldn't trust God, that God was holding out on her, and in that moment, she felt the need to take matters into her own hands, and she aligned with the enemy. The result was sin, and now this sense of distrust and self-reliance haunts us women to this day. Because we were designed to be relational, our fallenness is revealed in our relationships. Because we were created for life, our fallenness is revealed when we hide behind fear and shame rather than offering life and vulnerability. We may have a temptation to think or say, well, that's just my personality. I've always been that way, or that's just how I am. But what it comes down to is deciding, who will I align with, the enemy or God? In our fallenness, we move away from what God intended, and we attempt to take matters into our own hands. This is where we meet the controlling woman and the desolate woman. Most of us fall somewhere in between with traits of both. The controlling woman puts up walls, and by trying to control situations and relationships, she eliminates the need to depend on anyone but herself. She believes that everyone will ultimately let her down, that even God will let her down. The desolate woman, on the other hand, is so desperately hungry for a relationship that she feels deeply insecure. She believes that nobody could possibly love her as she really is. She believes that nothing will ever change, and it's useless to dream. So she shrinks back or even hides in plain sight. The common driver here is fear and the notion that we must hide our vulnerability, or our nakedness, as Lisa called it, at all costs. Do you see yourself in any of these behaviors? Did you come away from the retreat with an awareness of how some of these behaviors might be impacting your relationships? Ladies, we have an enemy that wants us to continue taking matters into our own hands rather than aligning with God. Not only that, he wants to suppress us even further to the point where we feel empty or desolate. What do you do to fill in the empty spaces in your heart? Lisa referred to these as false lovers, and it can be anything from material possessions to unhealthy habits. These are the things we give our hearts to other than God when the ache of our hearts becomes too much to bear. Unfortunately, these things do not fulfill us, and when we are seeking comfort in these indulgences, they often end up enslaving us. The only way out of this vicious cycle is to surrender everything to God. Let him have your nakedness, your true vulnerability. And the good news is that we don't have to do it alone. We have the gentle hand of Jesus walking alongside of us. Isaiah 41:13 says, "For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, 'Do not fear, I will help you.'" Do you remember the video at the end of the session with the humpback whale who had been entrapped in fishing gear, and the fisherman who worked desperately to free her? What a beautiful analogy for what God wants to do in your heart. And do you remember the outcome? At the end of that story, we saw unencumbered joy, gratitude, and freedom. And ladies, I am praying that that will be the outcome of your story too.